Okay, so today's going to be a little bit different. We're going to do some wood butchery. Now before I even start this video, my woodworking skills are non-existent. I am not Norm Abrams. I'm not even Roy Underhill. We're just kind of winging this and using the tools that we have and not going crazy. I know cutting the boards and everything, some sort of radial arm saw or even a framing saw would help out a lot, but all I got is a table saw, so we're going to be using that. And you'll see what I mean when we get to it later. So a while ago my wife had asked me that we need, or had said to me that we need to put something in this area here, and this is kind of part of our combo living room, dining room area, and we just have a blank wall here. There's a lot of space. So she wanted to put shelves there, and she liked the shelves that she saw that were made out of black iron. So the black iron is the supports for the shelves and it screws to the wall. And of course I looked at it and said, hey, I could do better. So I said, hey, I can make those. Now she threw a little bit of a curveball in the mix in the fact that rather than just having a straight set of shelves, she wants it to wrap around this corner. This right here is the entrance to my kitchen. So this is an older house. You look in, this house is built in the around 1950. These walls here are all hand-laid plaster. So they're not the smoothest things in the world. They'll have some ripples, and this corner really isn't square. It's close, but it's not perfectly square. So I just measured everything and cut the wood to be able to hang out about 1/4 of an inch or so off of that wall to take care of any ripple. So the plan is to have a support here, a support here, and then have another support in the middle that's like a kind of like a wedge screwed into this corner. So as you're watching this video, I'm gonna put a wood wedge in there. I have some brackets that I bought that are gonna go into that. We have a couple of things to deal with here. We have an outlet right here. The reason why this is up so high is I'm assuming that at some point there was a through-the-wall air conditioner in here. There's pretty good evidence for that in the fact that this is on its own circuit, and it's a 20 amp circuit, and there is a light switch here. So our shelves are going to end above this. There's going to be 3 shelves, and they're going to be roughly 12 inches between each other, because they're going to hold pictures of about this side, my wedding pictures and everything else. And yes, I did get married in Vegas, and yes, it was fun. So that being said, why don't we start? And I'm going to be using regular straight pine with this, and we'll be finishing it and staining it. So let's go downstairs and we'll start cutting some wood, and I'll show you the layout of what we're going to be doing. So I'm actually kind of running out of a little bit of room in the shop. I had to rearrange some things to get enough room to work, but we have enough room to work in. Well, we'll make do with this. So this is just the ubiquitous Craftsman 10-inch table saw. This is an older one, you know, typical homeowner saw. Nothing very special. What we got to do right now is rip the boards down to 9 inches in width. This blade right here is a Diablo combo blade, so it's good for ripping and crosscut. Thing works great. They're actually relatively cheap. They're made by Freud or however you want to say it, which is a really good manufacturer. You get them at Lowe's. So for the time being here, let me grab the other boards. I also have this hooked up to a vacuum, kind of a little bit jury-rigged to make it semi-enclosed. Let me just show you that real quick. So this is just a little modification that I made to make this semi-enclosed. It's not perfect, but it will kind of keep some of the dust down. So it's just a piece of hardboard here that I had to trim for the belt. So, and then underneath is another piece of hardboard with a flange screwed in place. That's actually a drain for a shower. And I just made a little adapter to hook up to my vacuum. So it's not perfect. I'm still going to get sawdust, but it'll kind of keep it from flying all over the place a little bit better than if I had nothing. So let me move my drink off my saw and we can get to cutting. Okay, vacuum on. Ready? Cut some 45-degree angles. Okay, now very simple, off of our mating pieces that we just cut off, we want a 26-inch shelf. That looks good. There is the other mating shelf that'll wrap around the corner, and we already have the mating piece to it, so they'll line up nice. Okay, so our joint, we butt up nice, and we meet pretty well. The short side's over here, the long side's over here. And the way this is going to work is over this side here, a few inches from the end, is going to be one of our black iron supports made out of the black iron pipe. And same thing a few inches from this side here. Now we also have to support where we wrap around the wall. We can't just have this floating in no man's land. Now I was thinking of just going right down the middle of this here and putting a piece of black iron pipe just like the other sides and just screwing it to the ceiling instead of screwing it to the wall. I thought that would look a little bit awkward, and for a myriad of reasons I don't want to screw into the ceiling of my house. A long story on that one. So I also thought of coming in the back area here and just putting a piece down the very back side and strapping that piece to the corner. But what I think I'm going to do is we'll take like a square block like this and cut it in half on the diagonal and make it a triangle. And what we'll do is we'll screw this triangle piece to the corner of the wall. So it'll be screwed in here and here. That ain't going to move, and then we can basically rest this back side of the shelf on that, and that's going to take all the weight. That'll be perfectly fine. Again, these things aren't really holding them much. It's going to be mostly pictures and things like that. So there's not a lot of weight going on these shelves. Now I don't want the front floating, so we have to mechanically join this shelf, this side to this side. Bunch of ways you could do that. You could have planned ahead and done a dovetail joint of some sort if you wanted to. You could use a biscuit. I do not have a biscuit cutter, and I'm not about to buy one. You could use wooden dowels if you want to. You can do a Dutchman. What I'm going to do, in kind of keeping with the metal theme, is I'm going to use these brackets. We'll probably get some glue in here too, just to reinforce the joint. But what we're going to do is use these little brackets, and these are going to be painted that black ironish color. And we're going to set one on the top side and one on the bottom side, and we're going to do each corner here to reinforce them. Okay? Now, I do not want them proud, so I have to inlet them into the wood. So we just have a little palm chisel here, and what I'm going to do right now is just make sure that we're lined up where we want. Okay, that looks pretty good. We're going to sit this piece in there. Making sure the legs are where we want them to be. Actually, I'm going to go this way so you don't see the Stanley mark on there. And I'm just going to trace it. Now these probably aren't perfectly the same size, so I just want to make sure that whatever one I use on either side, I want to mark that specific one. And then we'll go to the outside corner here. And those are marked, so now we can separate it. And depth-wise, I'm just going by eyeball here. I'm just marking it, just so I have some sort of reference. Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's our mark and there's our depth. So we're just going to go at that with the palm chisel here and inlet these little brackets. So what I'm going to do is come in on the lines. I'm going to cut down first. And then we're just going to carefully remove that piece. Okay, there you go. That's inlet just below the surface there. Actually, put it this way where the flat side is. That's inlet below the surface now. So we're going to do that to all 3 shelves on both sides. Okay, just had to move you back there so you can get it all in frame. So the brackets are on all 4 corners, so you can see them. One there. One there. Now they'll be painted. One there and one there. But you can see, if we get the whole thing in frame. So I'm holding it by that outside edge, and that's holding the weight. That's pretty stiff. Alright, lighting in here may not be the greatest, but we're just going to have to deal with it. So we have all our parts laid out. Now what we want to do is start the finish. Since this is pine and it doesn't really want to stain well, it will get all splotchy. I got some water-based pre-stain, some wood conditioner. I'm going to put a couple coats on that. But since it's water-based, before we do that, once we put that on there, the grain's going to swell. So we're going to do that ourselves by just taking a little damp cloth here. It doesn't need to be soaking wet. We're just wetting the wood there. And that's going to soak in a little bit. And what that's going to do is expand the wood fibers a little bit and raise the grain. Okay, so I'm only following the instructions on this. It says to slather it on there, let it sit for 5 minutes, wipe off the excess, dries in 15 minutes. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to slather it on. I let these boards dry. Put it on there, let it sit for about 5 minutes, wipe off the excess, let it sit for 15 minutes, and then I'm going to sand it and do a second coat. Okay, so we're over here at the South Bend drill press, and what we're going to do is drill the holes that the black iron rods go down. Now I measured with the actual nipples that we're going to use and the plate that we're going to use. I measured it so that that hole will give me a gap of about a 1/4 inch away from the wall. That way I can take care of any out of squareness that that wall has. It is hand laid plaster. So I have all my pieces marked out. I have a piece of scrap wood here so we don't drill into our table, and I have a depth stop set. Now this is a Forstner bit. So basically what this is kind of a combo picture it as a combo of a hole saw and a spade bit. So it's like a hole saw in the fact that it has teeth around the outside, and it's like a spade bit in the fact that it actually cuts the wood out of the middle. It doesn't cut a slug, but it makes a nice smooth edged hole. So that's why we're using these. Now the bit I'm using here is 1 1/8 inches, and the black iron is going to be 1 inch. It's 3/4, so it's 1 inch on the diameter. So you can see, nice hole, no tear out. Alright, so now we're going to add some color. So we had already put the sealer on here, or the pre-treat for the stain. Pine is notoriously a pain in the ass to stain, tends to get really blotchy, so that pre-stain treatment should help that out. I also did some poking around on the internet, and from what I found out, it's best, at least on pine, to use some wood dye. So that's what this is. Okay, so you mix this with hot water, the amount of 1 ounce, which is 1 container, to 2 quarts of water. And the difference between wood dye and stain, wood dye kind of soaks into the wood, whereas stain tends to stay on top of the wood. Stain is a little bit more color fast, and UV light won't fade as much. Wood dye will. So what we're going to do is put a couple coats of wood dye on here until we get the shade that we want. I might still end up with some blotchy areas, but this is just shelves, so I'm not really worried about it. I just kind of wanted to make it as uniform as possible and try out a new technique. I'm no Norm Abrams by any means. So we're going to do that, and then what we're going to do is we're going to wait 24 hours for that to fully dry. I'll probably actually wait a little bit longer than 24 hours. And then we're just going to go over it with some urethane, and that'll be the end of that. Now, what you can do is you can get some sanding sealer, some de-waxed shellac, which is, I think, sold on the Seal Coat or something like that. And you can put that on after you're done with the wood dye. And then on top of that, you can put a tinted glaze to kind of even out the finish. And then on top of that, you can put your clear coat or whatever you want to use. Also, between the wood dye here and your clear coat, if you're using a water-based clear, you'll want to use the de-waxed shellac first. Otherwise, the water-based clear can lift the dye into it. What we're going to do is wait for this to dry for 24 to 48 hours, and then we're going to go over it with an oil-based clear. Now you can, I've done it before, you can go oil over the water base as long as the water base is 100% dry. If it is not dry, it is not going to stick. The reason for that is 2 different types of finish so that the clear won't lift the dye into it. Same technique that you use on model making and stuff. You use enamels over acrylics or acrylics over enamels, that type of deal. So I'm just going to show you what the stain looks like, and then we'll skip right to the end finish because you guys all know how clear coat that works. So just like regular stain, should be able to just put this on and wipe it off. At least that's what I'm hoping. Okay, after 2 coats, you can see the blotchiness is pretty much gone. Nice, even color there throughout all these pieces here. So now I'm going to wait at least 24 hours, probably longer, to make sure this is completely dry. And then I'm going to coat it with 2 to 3 coats of an oil-based clear. Alright, just so you didn't have to watch me struggle get that first shelf up there, I went ahead and mounted it, leveled it, and we got it where it's supposed to go. I have all 4 holes drilled for each mounting plate. So obviously here's the mounting flange, 4 holes. These holes right here, those go directly into a stud. Those holes on this wall, those are in a bay. Now the anchors that I'm using are going to be these guys, and I think they're good for like 80 pounds each or something like that. This is basically what's holding up my TV, and I mean this doesn't really do it justice because I had to hold it with a pair of pliers, but it grabs on this surface here, and when it folds out these here, those will actually end up folding out further because they'll get caught on the inside of the drywall. Now once you feel these, you'll feel these screw in real easy, and then they'll get tight. Once they get tight, you can keep screwing them in, and it'll feel like you're stripping the plastic. You're not. What you're actually doing is you're drawing this part down onto itself. So tighten it until it stops, basically. Oh, and ignore the crappy ladder. It came with the house. Okay, so now that's hung in the middle right here. I have that corner resting on one of these that is screwed into the corner. This is painted to match. And the actual pipe so what we got to do to the actual pipe is make it look like this, okay? It's still dark or a bluish color, but we took off all this coating. And to get that off, I used denatured alcohol and it came right off. Even Lysol wipes took it off. So any kind of solvent or anything will take that coating right off and get your black iron to look like that. So now, what we need to do screw them in there. On that. To wedge the actual shelves together, all it is 2 couplings with a close nipple in between. You technically don't need a coupling on the top and the bottom like so. You could actually take a coupling, put the board through, and put the coupling on the bottom of the board. The only thing is you'll be able to see the hole through the actual shelf board. So this way here, if you look at it, you'll see a nice piece of black iron, and that'll hide that hole. Do yourself a favor, get a couple of extra fittings, because some of them aren't going to be threaded all that well. And all we want to do is just verify that we're as close as we can be to each other. So this one here has got a little bit of a wobble to it, but we shouldn't have that much of an issue with it if I'm able to get this in all the way. I'm trying to avoid using wrenches. Obviously you can. It ain't. If you put some soft jaws on it, something's not going to make a mark. But I get a pretty good grip on these by hand. All right, that's pretty close. And a little bit more. That's pretty close there. Take the little close nipples. Screw those in. Take whatever we want to be our next board. This one here. Take our bracket here. Now, I think what I'm gonna do after the fact is just go back into here and drill a hole in that very far corner through both metal brackets and then into this metal bracket, and then just put a screw to lock it down so that this back piece can't lift up for any reason. If you put a lot of weight on here, just so it can't shift around. Pretty good there. So I'll just Okay, so I'm getting set for the last piece. I've already marked out the holes for the plates. I got this as square as possible. I got that as square as possible, so we put that back, that last shelf in. Okay, so this is the finished product. You can see those cleats in the back there. One there. And there's one under there. And ow. From this side, we're nice and straight. And from here, we're nice and straight. I verified it with the level, and we're nice and straight here too. I verified it with the level. If it looks a little off on camera, it's just the camera lens itself. Like, it kind of looks off there, but level-wise, we're on the money. And now we're done. Fits perfectly.